Hey, sovereign cloud is a big problem, not just here in the US, but also in Europe. Grab my friends Jens and Arne off the show floor to talk specifically about this problem in this world that's been created because of the gap that VMware has created with what used to be the VMware cross cloud solution where they would orchestrate our workloads across multiple clouds and solve kind of this multi-cloud management problem for us, which kind of collapsed the overall challenge of managing or complexity of managing multiple clouds. Now the new VMware solution is basically VCF everywhere. If you want a sovereign cloud solution, whether you're talking about AWS, GCP, or even Azure, you need to be prepared to run VCF in each one of these clouds. So before we go into kind of the solutioning and talking through the problems, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I'll start. Yeah, so my name is Jens Söldner, teaching information systems at Ansbach University, and here at AWS reInvent as part of the German press delegation covering the event for a couple of German IT magazines.
I'm Arne Bauer. I'm with Zelda Consult, and I'm also here at AWS reInvent as part of the German press program, especially focused on the startup track. So a little bit offside from what Jens does here, and yeah, that's my role.
So guys, talk to me about the landscape in not just Germany, but Europe in general, as people are coming out of the big disruption of Broadcom buying VMware and kind of how it's disrupted strategy for sovereign cloud.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like turmoil in the market that I think keeps a lot of people busy all over Europe. So, yeah, as we all know, VMware was a big player in that field. Up until now, they are still basically, but with that Broadcom acquisition that took place 2 years ago, Hot 10 did a couple of very clever things, basically. So he saw that there's this challenge about like sovereign cloud and maybe also some repatriation themes going on. But so he kind of consolidated everything into VCF, VMware Cloud Foundation. Great idea, basically overdue somehow. But what people don't like so much is kind of the unpredictability that he brought into the game, and that of course gives a certain drive and edge to the situation.
So people would argue, I think the folks on the VMware Cloud side or VMware Cloud Foundation side, that they bought some certainty, at least to the technology uh, perspective. Arnie, what are you seeing? Has this created certainty, a little bit of uncertainty, or are there any technical gaps in the vision?
So I feel like what Jens says is definitely the biggest point, and there is becoming a little gap when it comes to the certainty, as you've said, and going back to what you've said, the multi-cloud or sovereignty movement that has gained very much attention in Europe through Broadcom, through this big bang, which has become we got this gap and we got this attention and focus on getting sovereign, and this is what VCF, and it is still a focus on one vendor. So it can be used very smart in different cloud and multi-cloud situations. And I feel like this is where the trend is going multi and hybrid cloud.
Yeah, so this idea that multi-cloud is here, there was a big announcement right before the show at AWS reInvent that Google Cloud and AWS are going to partner on networking and make multi-cloud networking a little simpler. This is the reality. Most companies can't be single cloud companies from both a technical perspective, an organizational perspective, but especially from a regulatory perspective. Sovereign cloud is here. I just got off the the show floor of AWS reInvent, I saw AWS advertising the double container data centers where they can bring in these data centers to create individual AWS regions. So multi-cloud is a reality. What we don't know is what happens when we don't accept the VCF vision, whether it's from a commercial perspective, from a technical perspective, and we no longer have this VMware cloud or VMware cross cloud glue to connect all of the clouds. What do we do? We're at AWS reInvent, so we have to talk about AI and agentic AI. Is this a problem that agentic AI can do? Can I just replace VMware cross cloud with a AI agent?
So I believe AWS wanted us to believe yes, or they want to get it possible through AI agents. And I feel like it is a beautiful vision. It is, because it seems like it is easy. It is weird dashboards or prompts, manage all your clouds, but it is not there yet. It isn't there, not in the beginning. So no, AI is not the solution for managing multi-cloud or even managing one cloud sovereign.
Maybe it can't be by design. Yeah, I think it helps you drive up developer productivity or even writing or publishing or whatever productivity in all these kind of intellectual pursuits dramatically. But it's not there to solve like networking challenges here. So I think you have to approach this in a very different way. And there are containers and Kubernetes and all of that stuff. Of course, like if the whole storyline with VMware and the cross cloud isn't there anymore, I think people are in kind of a situation.
So let's talk about a simple but yet complex problem. I want to direct this technical problem to you. I have EC2 living here in AWS. I have Google Compute and Azure Compute living in their respective containers. And I want to orchestrate the provisioning of a VM based on my sovereign cloud rules. So if I have a work process that can only happen in a region that's available to Azure, what's infinitely complex still is to create a simple workflow in which I can provision to my developers in an invisible way from Azure to AWS to GCP without there being a ton of friction. I understand you're involved with a startup in Germany that's looking to solve those types of problems.
Yeah, I think like you remember VMware vRealize automation area. It was called differently.
That I could buy it in the cloud.
Yeah, right. I think they had the same approach already like 10, 15 years ago. So I said, we give you this one self-service portal that gives you governance, and now you can deploy your VMs, VM-based applications. I think what you brought up is a very, very like challenging and also solvable problem. So I think it's now the time has come for so-called internal developer platforms. So what we are involved with is a IDP platform that brings kind of best of DevOps, platform engineering, call it GitOps nowadays. So some sort of Git-based thing is the source of truth, be it GitLab, GitHub, something on Azure or so. And then you basically take the original idea that VMware was pursuing, like not totally successfully like 50 years ago, give the people a self-service portal that can like deploy things via an infrastructure of code approach. GitLab, Git being the signals of a truth in a CI/CD kind of combined product, plus like complexity taken away by a very, very strong foundation. The product we are talking about is based on the open source Backstage by Spotify, and the team made it more digestible, I would say.
It is definitely. And I think this problem you've talked about before, let it break down into two, I would call it layers. You somehow have to talk with those different cloud vendors, and you somehow have to bring the self-service portal back, or the internal developer portal. And so what we do at the GitOps director is we use Terraform or infrastructure as a code for talking to those vendors. And for those who don't know, the Terraform or infrastructure as a code, OpenTofu, it basically abstracts the vendor portals away and replace them with code, which can be managed, it can be versioned, and it brings all those DevOps duties into cloud management. And then you've got one problem. You don't have the visibility. It is not as beautiful as those, I have to admit, very structured, very thoughtfully designed vendor portals. So, and that's where the internal developer portal made with Backstage by Spotify comes in place, because with this you're able to bring back in vendor independence and completely easy and also thoughtfully designed platform back and bring back the self-service to those cloud vendors.
Yeah, because when you said, we're replacing basically VMware cross cloud with cold, I got a little apprehensive. Whoa! I don't want to go. I love the interface. I love the click ops, and that's been one of the missing gaps.
But here, I think the agentic AI can get back into place. That actually would help, yeah, because it helps you do any kind of code that you want, basically.
Yeah, and this is something that we play with, and my viewers have seen me build entire applications or manage. Like, I could tell you how to use GC Cloud from the command line myself. I get Cursor to do it all for me. I know what needs to be done, and that's the problem, right? If I'm in one cloud, I know that a VPC or the equivalent of a VPC needs to be created. I don't know the commands to do that. So I need some type of central orchestration, and this GitOps solution that you guys are describing does exactly that. So we can't talk about anything today without talking about AI. And both of you had questions about this thing that I bought, which is the DGX
Exactly.
Spark, which is my little workstation, my ARM-based workstation with that our friends at NVIDIA calls a personal supercomputer. I think that falls a little short. But you guys had questions for me. What do you want to know?
Yeah, I think that comes from our joint experience at the university. So we have a couple of like NVIDIA Jackson devices lying around. We play around with a lot of technologies. And now the question is, how can we enable the next generation, our students who are doing the bachelor programs for information systems or for data security and privacy, how can we enable them to get their hands on the latest and greatest affordable hardware that needs to be squeezed into a tight university budget and come into budget? I saw your LinkedIn post. I think you also have some sort of chief financial officer that you would have to present your credit card bills to, and I'm not sure if she was totally pleased when she saw the bill. Yeah,
Yeah, I think her the reaction was, "Who is NVIDIA, and why are we giving them $4,000?" And the way bad it was.
that's a bad difference.
It was a $300, and it has, for my business model, it has paid for itself because of my specific business model around creating content. It's always going to be create content around it, but that doesn't speak to the university use case, right? And I think the Jetson is a very good device to compare this to. The Jetson gives you the ability to see the NVIDIA framework, right? Not a really great device to do real inferencing on, but a good device to understand what the software looks like. The GB10 base, so this is GB10. This has this is what makes it a supercomputer. It has the Grace Blackwell 10 NVIDIA GPU in it. So this is equivalent to basically a 5070, but with 128 gig of RAM. So from a CPU compute perspective, you have this Blackwell chip with 128 gig of RAM, which means I could run 70 billion parameter models. I can never think about doing that on a Jetson, and I can barely do it on most traditional desktops. Even if I took dual 5090s with 48 gig of RAM, now I'm squeezing the 70 billion RAM model onto the system. This is a system that runs off 100 watts of power, and that can get you a 70 billion RAM model. Well, to 5090s perform better? Absolutely. But it'll also soak up about 700 watts of power doing that.
So it's not for gaming, apparently, right?
There's people who have actually installed games on it, and this is where the 5070 comparison comes to. It's equivalent to running, a gaming desktop with a 5070. And if you look at the frame, it's about the size of a Mac Mini. That's pretty impressive.
It is. Talking about, budget and size, what would you recommend? Would you say it is the deal for, people on a budget or universities, or is it better to go with those graphics cards and build it yourself or get a pre-built, a big PC, for example?
AMD does have an alternative. Okay, and it's called the Strix platform, and it is half the price. It is $2,000, and it performs very similar. You're paying the extra $2,000 for the NVIDIA software experience. So if you want to get the latest models without having science experiments, you want to program and you want to learn what it's like to use a data center size DGX systems, it's very difficult to reproduce that without something like the Spark. But if you just want to learn AI and play around with models and a powerful inferencing platform, again, run a 70 billion parameter model, but you have to just, look for the right models to download that's quantized for that platform. You can save yourself $2,000 per device, which adds up quickly. So on the budget, there's no need for the CUDA and all of the advantages of NVIDIA. My recommendation is to go with AMD Strix fine system. If you want the fit and finish of NVIDIA and NVIDIA CUDA, then this is, in my opinion, the cheapest, best option, the most bang for your buck. Mm-hmm. Guys, where can folks find out more about this GitLabs product you're developing?
I think there's a URL for it. You have it?
There is. It is called GitOps-director.com. And quite easy. And just check it out. And if you have got any questions, just go to the contact form and hit us up.
I'll have a link down in the show notes. If you want to find out more about the CTO advisor and the advisor bench, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on X. DMs are open. See you next CTO advisor, CTO dose.